All right, everybody, welcome back to the Rob Review, your friend in success. And today we're talking about the options buying hack, the options trading hack, really, that earns 50% a month. Boom, boom, baby. Now, look, I'm really stoked about this because I've never really talked about this openly. I think I've written about it in the newsletter a few times, but the undercreditedinvestor.com. But this is a way to really leverage your money and not worry so much about, whether the market is sideways, whether your stocks have been earning real strong. It's a way to leverage whether you can even afford to buy and sell stock options in a way that really separates the wishful amateurs from the true pros that can produce regular trading profits from the market. You can become one of those by throwing aside everything else, taking away a lot of the overwhelm and the stressfulness about trading, and putting in your hands a simple strategy that's about 4-5 parts in total. And it can help you produce ongoing profits. Because if you think about it, the way to change your financial future is not to worry so much about making loads of money. It's about taking a small amount of money. I started this year with $3,000 in one trading account, leveraging options and growing it to six figures over time, and then producing a consistent 25 to 50% return on the six figures per month for the rest of your life. That's $25,000 to $50,000 per month. What could you do with that? How would that change your life? It would change a lot of people's lives in a big way. And that's where this starts, right here. It's a big turning point for you. And so what I want to talk about is the last three and the first three. This is where this starts. The last 3 days of every month and the first 3 days of every month are huge volume transitional points in the market. Now, there are certain times of the year that are even more lucrative than others, but most times of the year, you're going to get about 10 movements out of the 12 months of the year. 10 months of the year are going to be really quality movement months. And the last three and the first three are going to be the biggest moving points in most months. So if you just focus on those times, okay, so from, let's say, May, for example, it just ended, we're in June, you're talking about like the 28th of May to June the 3rd, just knowing that you're going to be there watching your charts and trading what? I would focus on only trading options. And if you don't have stocks that you know you want to trade and learning those options of those stocks, then just do indexes. This particular strategy focuses on trading the QQQs, the SPY, and the Russell 2000, which those are the tickers, QQQ, SPY, $RUT. They're relatively inexpensive, the RUT being the most expensive of the three to trade. And if you focus on only trading those three, you eliminate the thousands of stocks that are out there on the market. That overwhelm is what stops a lot of people from earning. And then the second piece of this, which is you learn your pitch. When your pitch is there, you trade. When it's not, you leave it alone. Okay. A lot of people screw up their profit in the market because they'll hit a good base hit or triple, and they'll have those triple digit gains of 100%. And then they go right back, and instead of putting the money aside and waiting for the next month, they go right back and they trade and trade and trade until they've had 5 consecutive losses that add up to almost 80%, and they're left with a very little gain in their account. Or they drain, they're so elated over the 100% gain that the very next trade, they give it all back to the market. The difference in an amateur and a professional is understanding that, knowing your pitch, knowing what you're going to trade ahead of time, and looking for that trade. And the trade is going to look like this. It's going to look like an out of the money options trade, buying weekly options, especially in the summertime, which is about May to September-ish. That's what I call the summertime season. That's what I've been taught to learn as the summertime season. You're focused on weeklies because you're not going to be in a trade generally more than 4 days. So the profit on the weekly options comes fast and furious, and it costs you less to be in them. And then as you go throughout the year, you get into the more fall trading zone, which is October to about January. And then you're talking about January to May being more of a period of transition. You're still looking for those longer trades, but they're happening less and less frequently. You're moving to monthly options then, but you're not sticking with them. I'm going to tell you guys a little secret. The Big Six is where it's at. And the Big Six is the 6 times of the year, traditionally speaking. It's never perfect, but it's the times of the year when huge gains happen in the market and the indexes. And I've seen gains as much as 2,000% in one trade. I don't care who you are. If you're leveraged the right way, you don't need but 2 or 3 of those a year over the course of 5 years to turn yourself into a very, very financially free person. And the Big Six is something I talk about in my newsletter. And I'll just lay it out here as, if you've stuck around this long, as just an additional to it, okay? As far as I'm concerned now, you can go and you can do your own study, and I encourage people to do that. But when you're trading indexes, the QQQs, the SPYs, the Russell, the Big Six are looking like this starting in January, okay? Generally speaking, a huge move that happens early February, and another one that happens around mid-February, mid-March, okay? Then sometime between June and July, okay? And then somewhere around late September into early October, and then late October into November. And that's where you're looking. And then on certain years when the charts are set up right, because what I do is really, really heavily chart oriented towards trading. I believe it takes a lot of the anxiety out of it and a lot of the what ifs out of trading. Sometimes there's a late December trade that, I think the last really good one was a couple of years ago, late December, popped up huge into January, and that was a very short trade. And this is what I'm focused on with these things. The idea here is to eliminate overwhelm by knowing what you're going to trade, using the indexes to only trade market moves where your daily chart looks like it can go in your direction at least 5 days, maybe 10, depending on the time of the year. And then focused on finding the best entry on the weekly options, buying that and holding it at the beginning of the month going into the next month, at the end of the month going into the next month, and then waiting the whole month, having gained that money and setting aside, and then closer to the last week of the month, whatever weekend comes up before that, doing some research, getting all your charts in order, and knowing where your trade is going to be, and getting your money ready to work for you. Right now we're in June, into June, going into July. Remember, the market, it doesn't owe you, man. Not a cent. So make sure to keep that in mind, and you only do what fits your money and your pitch. Till next time.